everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host, John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 1953's Shane and its new Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about the film Shane and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead to that right now. So back in 1953, director George Stevens gave us the second film in his American trilogy. And those movies are Place in the Sun in 1951, Shane in 1953, and Giant in 1956. Giant's probably the most famous of those three movies, but what's interesting is George Stevens won Best Director for the other two movies and not for Shane. And I believe that Shane is my favorite one of these three films. I love Shane. I'm a huge Western fan, so Shane is one movie that I've always enjoyed. And I remember, I want to say it was 2017 when Logan came out, and in the movie Logan, they're watching the movie Shane, and clearly the movie Logan was inspired by Shane. But when I got to thinking about it, the character of Logan overall is very similar to the Shane character throughout this entire film. If you look at Logan's entire character arc, the entire universe that they created from 2000, the first time we see the X-Men on the big screen, the first time we see the character of Logan and Wolverine on the big screen, from that character's arc all the way through the end of Logan, you could argue that that arc is just very similar to Shane's arc in this movie, not just condensed it into the movie Logan, because Shane, like a lot of other Western characters, he just rolls in the town. We don't know exactly who he is. The town doesn't know exactly who he is. This is just a classic Western trope. He ends up stopping at a homestead owned by Joe and Marion. Marion played by the great Gene Arthur in this movie. You know, he kind of gets to talking to them. They're a little bit hesitant at first. Then it's revealed that the people on the homestead are having problem with the ranchers. They have a real big conflict going on. And he decides, all right, I'm going to settle down a little bit and try and get an experience for the quiet life. You know, I've had a real hard life to this point. We don't really know that yet at the beginning of this movie. But he decides, all right, I'm going to work for Joe, help him out. And of course, he goes into town one day and he meets Riker and his boys. These are the ranchers. They're the ones that really want the people to get out of town. This is their town. They feel like they earn this town. And one thing, you know, in 1953 film, you wouldn't expect the antagonist to be a little bit operating in the gray area, because they actually explain why they feel this way about the people on the homestead, who did actually acquire this land legally. So that's the whole thing. That's the real big conflict. They're not really there intruding on the ranchers, but the ranchers feel that way, and they generally feel that way. Of course, you know, they resort to, you know, kind of violence. They're not going to use their guns. They kind of made an agreement about that, but they're basically just going to force these people to leave the land, you know, basically by intimidation. It's wrong, but you can understand why they feel this way. But of course, they just take it to too many extremes. You can't move people out of their land, and Shane sees this. And when Shane comes in there, they try to intimidate him. The first time, you know, he's like, all right, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to take the bait. I'm just here for my soda pop. I'm going to give it to Joey, because one big thing about this movie is the kid Joey Jr. I guess he's Joey Jr., but, you know, Joe's son, Joe and Marion's son, he is fascinated with Shane. He is just adores Shane. Shane's his hero. Shane is like a superhero. He comes into town. He's stoic. He's charming. He doesn't really say too much, but you can just see he's a strong human being. And it's strange because he's got a strong human being in his father, who is just willing to never set his morals aside. He's always willing to do the right thing. He's a good man, his father, but I guess he just more admires the stoic nature of this gunslinger that comes into town compared to, you know, his own father, who is a great, honorable man. So, you know, that's something about a young kid. He's always going to be more attracted to, like, that big guy. Like, think about the sports hero, the superhero, that to his actual hard-working father who was trying to do the right thing for the community. But, you know, of course, those are the two heads that are going back to back, are Joe and Riker. They're the two sides of the coin. They're the ones facing off against each other, the leaders, but they both need someone to help them out. Shane happens to be the guy that's going to be helping Joe out. This movie has a great bar scene. And honestly, all the fighting scenes, all the hand-to-hand combat scenes are amazing in this movie. And, you know, that's something that I love it. Like, things are getting destroyed. The audio is phenomenal in this movie. Like, the gunshots all sound great. And I mean, you look up the information about the gunshots, they wanted that to sound as realistic as possible. Of course, this is 1953, but it does sound really good. The audio in this movie is fantastic. So when it comes to the technicals of this film, it's a 1953 film shot in Technicolor. It looks absolutely gorgeous, especially for Westerns of the time. Really does stand out. Does look a little bit like they're on sets, of course, at moments, but overall, a beautiful looking film and definitely a beautiful sounding film. Both guys, Joe and Rufus, they need somebody to come in and essentially, the gunslingers. So Rufus isn't going to do it himself. He has to bring in Jack Wilson, played by the legendary Jack Palance, who I've always loved Jack Palance because I'm a huge Batman '89 fan, and then Young Guns. So I'm always used to more of the older Jack Palance, City Slickers Jack Palance, where his voice is like, so Lola.
Do you see our good sheriff sitting up there on that horse? You know how much money he's got invested in my store? His life savings, John.
Don't forget.
You're lucky, Dak.
I just love Jack Palance's voice. It's just unique. And he doesn't really get to say too much in this movie, but you still know it's Jack Palance, and he is phenomenal in this film. And this movie is building up to a great conclusion, a conclusion that's not unexpected. And again, if you've seen Logan, you kind of know how it's going to go. He says goodbye to the family. He knows that this is going to be the end of their journey because either way, he's pretty confident that he'll be the one to get rid of everybody, get rid of all the bad guys. We're pretty confident in that too, but he's not going to be coming home. So he says goodbye to Joe and Marion. He decides to go. Of course, there was a little bit of a conflict with the kids, so he's screaming, running behind him, I'm sorry. He follows him all the way here, and he sees the entire shootout, and that's when Shane has to tell him, I gotta go. This is it. And, the kid doesn't take that too well, but I think he understands. And then, of course, it's revealed, Shane got shot. Now, does Shane die at the end of this movie? I don't know. I'm conflicted. They only show the one scene of him riding by, kind of hunched over. It might be just because he got shot, but I do think that he didn't get too far, and he probably ends up dying somewhere in the dirt, not too far down the road. And yeah, that's a sad ending for this character. But I imagine for him, it's probably a happier ending. He got to experience that small town life that he never was going to get because it was something that was never really in the cards for him. So he had to accept that and learn that about himself. He tried it. It wasn't going to work. But I think that an ending like this would fit his character. Makes sense for a character who was involved in all these big gunfights. Yeah, he still won, but he took one, and that's going to be the end of his life. And I think that's kind of a beautiful way to end this film. It is a beautiful film. One of the best Westerns of all time. Would it make my top 10 Westerns of all time? Absolutely. I don't know if it cracks the top 5, but this is one that you can easily revisit. You can see the influence on other films, and I just think it's one of those great, great films. Besides just being a great Western, it's just a great movie, and one I can highly recommend. And you know what? Let's talk about this new 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Kino, Lorber. Well, here it is, Shane on 4K Blu-ray. This one is from Kino Lorber, and unfortunately, as much as I'm excited to talk about Shane on 4K Blu-ray because I've never had this in my physical media collection before, I was a little bit let down by this one, even though I have nothing to compare it to because I've never owned this on VHS, DVD, or Blu-ray. I actually didn't see Shane for the first time until I think like 2014, I believe, so I've only actually had this movie in my mind for the last 11 years, and I just never grabbed the Blu-ray, so I was really excited when this got announced for a 4K Blu-ray from Kino. I was a little hesitant because Kino Lorber, unfortunately, sometimes they can take the lazy route, and they did on this, even though they gave us a great visual presentation. So I'm not going to go any further before we get into all of that. Right here is the 4K Blu-ray. The case that it came in, though, man, the plastic is coming up at the top and bottom, so that's a little bit unfortunate. When you come inside, one Blu-ray, one 4K Blu-ray, all of your extras are going to be on that one Blu-ray. And what are your extras? Well, there are 2 audio commentary tracks. That is it. There is no making of or anything like that. No looking back, no interviews, nada. There's just those commentary tracks, and then, of course, it's Kino Lorber, so you get a list of all of these trailers. So I was very disappointed being the extras junkie that I am, and not to be a hypocrite, we just talked about last week, Ace Ventura Pet Detective on 4K Blu-ray. This is exactly what Shout Factory did. And actually, our channel director, Nicholas Head, even said that that release sounded like a Kino release, meaning that they only gave us the visual upgrade. And when you only do that, and you charge over $30 for me, that's just, you can't do that. That's really ripping off the collector. You have to give them a little bit more. Like the audio track, the DTS HD Master Audio 2.0, because that's the only audio track on here, which does make sense. This is a 1953 film. The mono track, as long as everything comes in crisp and clear, and I was talking about how good the audio is in this film, the audio design, it's great. Every time that they're fighting, every time there's a shootout, all that stuff sounds so realistic, so well done. It's so well mixed, and it all lends itself very well to a great audio track. And the 2.0 is very good. It's just that's the only option. You know, we look at Warner Brothers now giving us like films like The Searchers, another classic Western. We got audio options on there. And that would be cool to get something like that for a movie like Shane, but that's just not Kino Lorber's forte. Unfortunately, they're just going to take the laziest route possible, even though they do a great job. And that's the thing I have to admire a little bit. You know, they have a contract with Paramount Films, and that's how they were able to release this movie on Shane. So it's better than if Paramount would have released it themselves, because, yeah, the audio might not be an upgrade, and we didn't get any new extras, but how are the visuals? The visuals are fantastic. It doesn't look as good as The Searchers. I wouldn't say this is one of the top 5 best looking Westerns I've ever seen on 4K Blu-ray, but it does look pretty damn good. It's a beautiful looking Western just to begin with, so it's going to translate pretty well to the 4K Blu-ray format. Again, it doesn't hit like the levels that we've been seeing this year from other Westerns. It's not anything as good as the Dollars trilogy, and like I said, it's not as good as The Searchers, and I don't even think it's as good as like Pale Rider or The Outlaw Josie Wells. I mean, that's not to say that this doesn't look good. It just doesn't hit that upper echelons of what great Westerns can look like in 4K Blu-ray. I imagine that they were at the mercy of the source material as well. This is a new scan of the 35mm negative, so it makes sense. It just, there's some moments of unsteadiness, there's some moments of murkiness throughout this. It definitely does look sharper. The colors look absolutely stunning. In my research though, I did read that some people weren't necessarily 100% happy with the changes to the color timing. Now, I can't confirm or deny if they changed anything like that, because again, I haven't owned this movie on physical media. I've only seen it on streaming, and when you watch something on streaming, that's really not necessarily the best version of it anyway, so I can't say that that version is something that is what translated to the physical media releases. I can't say for sure without seeing it for myself, so all I have is the 4K Blu-ray to compare to the Blu-ray in here, and that Blu-ray is the exact same scan, just without HDR10, Dolby Vision, and then obviously downscaled to 1080p. You could buy that Blu-ray separate as well, and the Blu-ray does look really good. It's just obviously lacking some of those cool special features like the high dynamic range, which really does help this in the darker scenes. That's really where I think it helps to stand out, is that's where the high dynamic range really makes a difference, and you'll notice that definitely if you compare the Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray. Other than that though, the Blu-ray is fantastic, so if you want to save a buck or two, it's definitely not a bad idea to grab the Blu-ray, because it's not the world's biggest difference from Blu-ray to 4K Blu-ray, just because again, 1953 film, source material, you're not going to get the world's biggest difference. That's why I've always said that like Dolby Vision and HDR, those are the biggest tools that we got when we came to 4K Blu-ray. They are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Yes, the resolution increase is fantastic, but we get that and it just makes the colors look so much more vibrant, so everything looks more natural, and you can see that in this, even though, like I said, not the world's biggest difference, but you can see what's making the difference, and I think that's important. Now, I can't give this 4K Blu-ray a super high grade, even though I'm very happy to have it in my collection, because I felt like I paid way too much for it. This is something that you pick up in the Kino Lorber 50% off sales that they have, because unless you're just somebody who wants that visual upgrade, which I've explained here, that's not me. I need a little bit more if I'm going to be spending that much money. A visual upgrade is great, but if I already own the movie, I'm not going to be somebody who wants to upgrade the visuals if that's the only thing I'm going to be getting. But on the other hand, I didn't have this in my physical media collection before, and I would have wanted to grab the 4K Blu-ray. I just wouldn't have wanted to grab it at the price I grabbed it at. If you're somebody like me who loves Shane and hasn't had it in their physical media collection, this is going to be something that you're going to want to have. It is definitely the best version of Shane. It's just that I think Shane deserves a little bit better. It is an important film. Like I said, this is the one film in this American trilogy that unfortunately George Stevens didn't win Best Director for. He won it for the other two movies in his American trilogy, but not the middle one, even though I believe this is the best. Some people might say Giant, but I do believe that this is the best, and I just felt like it deserves a little bit more love. The same way I felt about Ace Ventura. Like these special kind of movies, I think they deserve a little bit more love. Maybe try and get some interviews, get some video essays. I'm not entirely sure. Just because to make it feel like it's something for the collectors, the people who are going to be buying this. And unfortunately, Kino Lorber, they've done this in the past, and I'm sure that they'll continue to do it. They just kind of take the lazy route, and it sucks because I love Kino Lorber. I really do. It's just I feel like they kind of get the materials and they just kind of go the easiest, quickest way possible, and they just don't level up to like the other great boutique labels like the Criterion Collection, Arrow Video. You know, right now Shout Factory sometimes can fall in line with Kino Lorber, and that's disappointing, but it's still, they just don't hit that upper echelon because they don't go the extra mile. They're fine. They get the movies out there that not a lot of other studios release, but I feel like they can do more, and I just wish they would. So if I was going to give Shane a score of 1 to 10, the entire package, you know, including visuals, extras, audio, the packaging. I'm going to unfortunately have to give Shane a 6.5 out of 10, even though I'm very happy to have it in my collection. I just wish they would have done a little bit more with this classic Western. But I think some people are still going to be very, very happy with this release. Like I said, I'm happy to have it in my collection. It's Shane. It's got to be in there. So anyway, guys, that's it for me on this episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Shane. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel membership, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel, like Ben Rondo, John Doe Juggalo, and our newest channel producer, Harvey Scott, you could do that, or you could even bump it up to the director's tier, where you'll find Stone Gasman, Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, Frank from Frank's Media Reviews, and Nicholas Head, or you could even bump it up to the channel bankroll member like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you got no money to throw my way, don't worry about it. I just hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.